This was the first church. Coming up on the left, because this was the first block to be shoveled in. This is called the Arlington Street Unitarian. That'll be open tomorrow if you want to go in there. They welcome people to check out their stained glass. They have the largest collection of original Tiffany's in the world. 16 by Louis Comfort Tiffany. It's usually open till 3 p.m. Keep it open tomorrow. Now, the reason why the Back Bay was all shoveled in is because when the Irish were coming here, Boston was tiny. And they started overcrowding the city downtown. And so the Yankees moved out to the suburbs. They were taking their tax money with them. So they wanted to get them back by using the Irish labor to fill in the Back Bay. So halfway through the project, Boston was the wealthiest town in the Northeast. The Irish gained their right to vote, and then everything changes in one generation. They took City Hall. And by getting their voting right, then they got their civil and labor rights. So St. Paddy's Day is a big day here because it's an overall celebration of immigration because the Irish kind of paved the way for the rest of the groups to come to the city. It just so happens to be the day the British forces evacuated Boston, so it's called Evacuation Day. So it's a big celebration of Irish immigration and the military. Here's the best view with the public art. I always tell people, don't leave town without walking through this garden. It just makes you feel better. I think you're walking through a beautiful painting. You can see there's two real swans swimming in the water. It's amazing that this beautiful garden was a garbage dump for 200 years. So this would have been the edge of old Boston here. So people would walk down to the bottom of the common and throw all their trash in the weeds. And at low tide, the garbage was pulled out to the harbor. So after a couple hundred years, it was a pretty nasty place. Now it's where people got their wedding pictures taken. It's a big reason why Edgar Allan Poe hated Boston, because he was born next to that garbage dump. Very dark man. He also hated Boston when he was an adult because nobody liked his work in Boston. It was the golden age of literature, so he was overshadowed by guys like Emerson and Thoreau. Thought Bostonians were snobs. Okay, we're going to go up over Beacon Hill and head towards the water. Get a good look at them earlier. Those little duckling statues are down to that. This story has been translated into every language. It goes Jack Cack Lack, Mac Nack, and Whack Pack. Okay, we're gonna head up Beacon Hill, the most prestigious neighborhood of Boston. This is where the richest Yankees lived. They called them the Brahmin, the East India caste system, the high enlightened souls. The Blue Bloods, the descendants of the Puritans. It's a beautiful neighborhood. It kind of looks like Richmond, Virginia. It's very Victorian, Georgian. And it was the first neighborhood to get landmark protection, so you gotta keep everything looking nice. You gotta keep it looking the same. It's one of the most photographed neighborhoods in the country. It's also the neighborhood where abolition started, the social movement to end slavery. And all throughout this neighborhood is the Underground Railroad and the Black Heritage Trail. Now, Longfellow wrote Paul Revere's Ride based on a portrait by John Copley. Copley lived where this big white building is. He owned this hill. He went to England after the Tea Party and he never came back. So they took his land, for pennies on the dollar, turned it into a wealthy neighborhood. Longfellow was married in this building with the flagpole here, 39 Beacon Street. The poem was written during the Civil War for children. Because the country was being torn apart, you wanted them to be more patriotic. Turned them into a big hero. So mostly these old mansions are subdivided condos. Tom Brady used to live on the street. He sold his $4 million 3-bedroom condominium. This is a nice neighborhood to explore. If you ever come up here to the top of this hill, walk over 1 block to Mount Vernon Street and take a left down Mount Vernon. It's like you step back in time. Some of the nicest mansions in New England. Whenever I have friends in town and they want me to walk them around, and they've already done the Freedom Trail, I usually take them down Mount Vernon Street. It's a nice street to go on. It's all downhill, so it's easy on your legs. And when you're done, you're in the village of Beacon Hill. You're really close to Cheers and the public garden. That's the frog pond down in the right for the kids cool off. That's going to be an ice skating rink in about a month or so. Before that was a cement pool down there. Back in the Puritan days, it was a much deeper, muddy swamp, and that was the punishment station. They called it the dunking station, and that's where they'd hold you underwater for punishment. People were executed down there. The little kids splash around. Yeah, they're pretty strict people, the Puritans. They didn't mess around. That's tough living back then. There's this show on PBS, it's called Frontier House, and it's kind of like that show Survivor, but you have to live like a Puritan, and everybody quits because it's so difficult. Every day was a constant struggle for survival. That's why everybody was so superstitious. They went after witches, and they also went after Quakers. They considered them both heretics. And here's the Massachusetts State House coming up on the left, where the governor works. It's a great building. It's open in March when I go inside. It's a free history museum. Very important government building. You'll see John F. Kennedy at the top of the stairs. He was born in Brookline, Massachusetts, not far from here. There he's been president. His mother and his grandfather grew up in the North End neighborhood. That Little Italy used to be an Irish neighborhood. And the governor's office is the second floor, left-hand corner. A guy named Charles Bulfinch designed the red brick. He was America's first American-born architect. And he designed that building when he was 22 years old. That opened 1797. The white wings were added during World War I. The two statues out in front are both senators. The guy in the robe is the father of the American public school system. His name was Horace Mann. And the other guy was a very influential speaker, Daniel Webster. And the Freedom Trail brings you up here. It's a very important government building because a lot of the U.S. Constitution is based in the Massachusetts Constitution. It was in that movie Amistad, Anthony Hopkins. It's a great movie about the Civil War called Glory. It's about these guys on the right here. Denzel Washington won the Oscar. The 54th Regiment, the first black volunteers to the north. There's the entrance to the State House. This is another Civil War guy, General Hooker. And there she is, Mary Dyer, hanged for being a Quaker. Quakers were free thinkers. They didn't believe in all the guilt and shame the Puritans are trying to sell. Harder to control, they can threaten the social order. You're going to see some great monuments coming up. You're going to see the Firefighters Memorial to the left. And up ahead is a big badge. That's the law enforcement. Boston had the first fire and police departments in the United States.